Good night of Shabbos. You know, in 2 days we're going to celebrate the giving of the Torah. And the Torah, especially the so-called 10 Commandments, they're not really 10, they're 14. The 10 statements from God are much maligned and misinterpreted, especially by the most religious. The Torah does not say thou shalt not kill. The Torah says thou shalt not murder. Murder is defined as the illegal, unreasonable, unnecessary doing away of another person's life. In certain instances, you're not only allowed to kill, but you're commanded to kill. We're commanded to kill an enemy that wishes to destroy our nation, our families, and so on and so forth. If you're a soldier and another soldier is coming after you, or after the country that you're defending, you have an obligation of terminating that person. That's not murder, that's killing, but it's a justified homicide because that person is battling you. Somebody tries to kill you, tries to enter your house and burglarize you, you're allowed to use even extended methods of repulsing this person, even to the point of killing that person. The reason being is the person who's violating your space has every intention of doing away with you, either if you stand up to him to defend your property or to be rid of any kind of possible witnesses. That's not murder, that's killing that's justified. Torah says such a person has no blood. There is no blood in killing that person. And so this puts to the lie that capital punishment is against the Bible because it says thou shalt not kill. No, capital punishment for certain crimes is necessary. The reason why we Torah Jews do not have capital punishment is because there's no high court. And perhaps since there is no high court, by divine providence, God has deemed that those people guilty of capital crimes have a possible way of correcting their souls. Because in past times they couldn't. But that goes against the generally accepted principle that those who murder should be killed and executed because the punishment fits the crime. And the thing is, you have to know for sure that that's the murderer. You can't have a circumstantial evidence and kill the person, execute the person based upon circumstantial evidence. You have to have clear, compelling evidence. And even then, execution is something that's only permitted when there is absolute knowledge. But once there is, then we're obligated to do away with the murderer. This does not violate the 10 Commandments. And those who do so know that they're silly. But they do so nonetheless because they're against capital punishment. They're against capital punishment because they empathize or sympathize with murderers. They try to find excuses for murderers. It's true, sometimes a person's socioeconomic position has put the person into that particular frame of mind. But all of us are born with a conscience. Therefore, we know right from wrong. We know it is wrong to kill someone. The fact that you're angry does not make it acceptable or as an excuse. But I want to go to the place, the area which is most controversial. You have in this country an enormous surplus of senior citizens, myself included, who no longer can work to the capacity that they were used to when they were younger, and utilize tremendous amounts of treasure in maintaining their health. During the last 2 years of someone's life, they can go through hundreds of thousands of dollars of medical attention, despite the fact that they've never been hospitalized up until that juncture. The cost of maintaining our senior citizens is staggering. Many of our senior citizens are found in hospitals with breathing machines, feeding tubes, and intravenous nourishment. Intravenous medicines and nourishment. I ask you a simple question. A person is on a breathing machine and a feeding tube. Obviously, the quality of life isn't what it was, isn't what it should be. Why not decree that from now on, all those people above the age of 85 who are on life support machines should have them been taken off of those machines? What do you think would be the reaction? Well, people like myself would be appalled. In a few years, I'll be 85. I want to live. I want to see my grandchildren. I want to see their weddings. I want to see great-grandchildren, maybe even great-great-grandchildren. Why wouldn't you do that? And fair-minded people would say because the person who's on a breathing machine is alive. And it's possible that life may get better, that it's possible that the breathing machine may help the person get back to live another few months, and another few months, and be productive, or at least have some quality of life. So most of you would say, shouldn't do that. It's murder. I guarantee you that the women's liberation movement and the left will be sympathetic to the calls for cessation of heroic measures in saving the lives of senior citizens. I know that because in England, after a certain point, I believe it's 75, it's impossible to get a pacemaker because you've lived your life. To leave those expensive machines to people who can be more productive. And this is where society is going. When Roe v. Wade came out in 1973, I predicted correctly that the next step would be toward medicide, not just assisted suicide, but medicide. The doctors would determine whether someone's life was worthwhile and would do away with those people. They would make the decision for them in not extending their lives. My mother was hospitalized when she was 89. She had an infection. She was given medicine for the infection, but she was not given any nourishment. She couldn't eat, so the doctor just advised that we just let it go. My mother lived another year and 8 months. And she saw in that period of time 53 descendants. I think it was 53 great-grandchildren. During that period of time, we came to visit her during that year and 8 months. She held them, they held her, she laughed with them, they laughed with her. But had I allowed the doctor to make the decision, she never would have seen those great-grandchildren. She never would have known how much people loved her. These are the decisions that are being made every day. And it's only a short position to take up, to believe that a person, once their useful years are over, they shouldn't take up so much of the treasure of the medical industry. And if they're of a certain age, they should not be put on breathing machines, nor should they be given life support of any kind. And the reason for that is, if you can terminate a baby who's on a breathing machine and a feeding tube, the feeding tube and the breathing machine is the mother. And the baby, the fetus, in a few weeks will be able to breathe and eat on its own. But at that point, the fetus is just like my helpless mother, who was on a breathing machine and needed to be fed through a peg tube. And those who permit and encourage the death and destruction of a fetus will also clamor for cessation of life of those whose lives are less than productive in their minds. Such is the nature of the radical left that promotes abortion at all stages of pregnancy. Those who are okay with killing their own children are also okay with killing somebody else's children and terminating others' lives. It's only a question of time. The reason why we've become so indifferent, the reason why we're seeing so many more mass killings, got nothing to do with the number of guns, but everything to do with the callousness that we take toward human life. I don't mean human life of a person that's condemned to die. That person deserves to die. But when you're callous about life, you can terminate it because you feel empowered to do so, because it makes your life better, you think. Then what's to stop you from getting rid of all seniors who take up so much of the treasury of this country and of the world? The wealthiest people are usually older. They're retired. They've amassed a nest egg. It's time to go on. It's time to take their assets to the younger generation, to confiscate it, because they're using up too much of the world's treasures. Unfortunately, medicide and abortion are related, and you will see the truth of this position in the months and years to come. And as I told you before, Nazi Germany started their murderous ways by killing their own children because they felt the children weren't fit for life, because they were retarded, etc. They were a drain on society. And if you can kill your own children, then you have no compassion for others' children, for other people as well. So this is the warning to the left. If you want to spare your humanity, you will stop this outrageous move toward abortion on demand at all stages of pregnancy and become sensitive to the valuable gift of life that God gives each one of us for how long we can live.